Why, hello there everyone. I'm Laxow, aka the Kumo Sensei. Minasan, ohayo gozaimasu. And yeah, this is another Monocentropus balfouri breeding, also known as the Socotra Island blue-leg baboon tarantula. And as stated before, this is my second female, so if you missed the video of my first pairing with my first female, I'll post a video on the top right, so go check it out. But anyhow though, onto this tarantula breeding. This is male. I promise you, this male has the most strangest positions and ways of pairing up and mating. And you're gonna see, because they're gonna be breeding on the side of the enclosures. And man, I don't hate it because he gets the job done, but it's just so perplexing. Like, you could be breeding on the ground of the enclosure, yet you choose to do your work on the side of the enclosure, both the male and the female hanging. And that makes it pretty difficult to record, and also pretty difficult at times for me to see if he has a good insertion or not. So during this tarantula pairing, you're going to be seeing me record in different positions and different angles, because my goodness, this pairing, why does it have to be hanging on the side of the enclosure? Just sorry, it's funny looking back on it now, editing this video, but yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. This one was pretty fun, honestly, to record, but I just wish it was more easier. These males and females, they don't make it easy for me, I tell you what. But hey, that's life as a tarantula breeder. Sometimes things become more complex than they need to be. And if you're wondering how long this tarantula pairing took, it took about 2.5 hours, I think close to 3. And balfouri, for some reason, they like to take their time when it comes to pairing, because the male usually do a few inserts. Sometimes he does multiple inserts, which honestly takes a while at times. Especially this male. This male is actually very, I don't want to say slow, but he takes his time when it comes to mating. But hey, I'd rather have him take his time than to be reckless and get himself eaten, so at least he does the job, right? Now, I've seen videos and other people breed their balfouris, and usually it goes by relatively quick. But for me, in my experience, it's been relatively slow in most parts. Maybe I'm just cursed with slow pairing males and females for this species. And man, oh man, am I tired. For those who are wondering, I usually prefer doing my tarantula pairings and matings at night when tarantulas are active. In my experience, I find that there tend to be slightly better results, but hey, that's just my preference. Some tarantula breeders breed whenever, however they like, so it's really up to you, but for me, I just prefer breeding them at night. And although I do lose sleep, and although I am a very busy person in my personal life, at least I think it's worth it, I think. For me, that is. And I guess I'll make that my disclaimer. Every tarantula breeder has their own ways and methods of doing things. Even me, myself. I don't really go into depth about it because it's not really complex, but I'm very picky about how I do it, I guess. To each their own. Now, I've stated this before, and I guess I'll state it again. I don't necessarily breed balfouri as a profit species because I find that they saturate the markets relatively quick because of how easy it is to pair them. I think balfouris are one of the easiest old world tarantulas to breed. Now granted, they're not beginner friendly species because they're old world. But in terms of old world breeding projects, I think these are probably the easiest to get into because I've never in my entire experience experienced an aggressive female towards a male. I find that every single female has been very lenient towards the males, which is why you see so many communals and so many people producing balfouri. So for me, in terms of trying to breed them for a profit, I don't really necessarily see them as a profit unless you have large juveniles, or unless you sell in communals, or if you have adult females. But overall though, I really just breed this for a pet species, I guess. So what I do is I typically just keep the slings that I produce, raise them up until they're juveniles and when they're sexable. And what I do is if I have females, I either raise them up as future breeders, or I just sell them as sex females or trade them away for other species. And then it's pretty much a rinse and repeat cycle, I guess. I don't necessarily sell them unless I really need the money, but in most cases, I prefer just trading them away for other species that I need for breeding and whatnot. But that is just my approach to balfouri. I don't necessarily will see them as like, bing, a profit, you know? It's a relatively difficult sell at times, which is why a lot of people do communals or sell them in groups. And I know that some of you may be curious if I keep my balfouris communal or not. I personally don't. And the reason why is because if I'm going to breed my females, I gotta know which female I've bred, because if I have a communal of females and I introduce males, I don't really know which male or which female has been bred, and it just get confusing for me. So I just prefer keeping them all separate, so that way I know which female has been bred on what day, and that way my data or my information doesn't get mixed up and whatnot. And I hope that explains why I don't really keep mine's communal. I did try to keep a communal of baafouri a very long time ago, but it didn't go as planned, so I ended up separating them. But I think that'll be for another time, I guess, that story. But either way though, in terms of breeding baafouri, if you want to keep your data intact and in order, then I prefer just keeping your females separate, so that way you know which female has been bred, on what day, by what male, and it will help you get organized when it comes to tarantula breeding, because sometimes when you have a lot of tarantulas, you don't really know what has been bred on what day. Now for me, I'm a very small tarantula breeder. I don't necessarily breed everything I have, and I'm very meticulous and picky about what I choose to breed and what species. So for me, I don't really need to keep datas and files because I know exactly what I'm breeding, and my numbers of what I produce is not very large compared to other large tarantula breeders. But in the future though, if I do breed more females and if I do have way more specimens to take care of, I would probably keep more data and information in check. But as of now, I can manage it all in my head. So when it comes to specific information, that I will take notes for, but in general, I can pretty much keep the majority of it in my head. So I guess you could say I do take notes, but not a lot, just a few notes here and there. I know this might sound kind of strange, but when it comes to tarantula breeding, I have more notes for my males than my females. And the only reason why is because I gotta know when the male matured and when was his last sperm web, because those matter more to me than anything else. The females, I usually just keep down when they last bolted, and that's usually about all I keep in terms of their information. So yeah, so if you're wondering, I have more notes marked down on this male than the female does. Which is kind of funny because usually a lot of people would think the other way around for tarantula breeders. But that's how I do it. Now everybody has preferences, and a lot of different tarantula breeders look at different things, and they prioritize based on what they want, what they need, and whatever they find will give them the optimal results. So that's just the way I do it. I like to prioritize my males more, because I tell you, sometimes finding a male is very difficult. Now speaking of difficult, recording this was very difficult, and you're going to see me switch positions again at a different angle, and you're going to see way more different angles because it's going to get very difficult to record at times. But at least the male gets the job done, and he gets out okay, so that's all that matters. A lot of people tend to get the feeling of adrenaline or some sort of rush out of this when it comes to tarantula pairing. I just see this as a very calming and relaxing and elegant thing, and that's usually my approach to tarantulas, and still is. Just keep calm, don't freak out, and everything will work out, like an expert should be. And yeah, he's pretty much getting his job done, and he's going to be wrapping up pretty shortly. So this right here is going to be his last insertion before he backs off and tries to leave. And don't worry, he survives. So I guess I'll call this a video for today. So without further ado guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. And stay updated to whenever I upload here on the channel. I upload every single Tuesday and Friday. So please feel free to do so and stick around. And also follow me on my IG, my Twitter, specifically on IG. And support me on Patreon. And with that, stay lax, and Laxow out from the Kumo Sensei.